Hello, it's me again. So I guess this would be part two to the Oddities video. I've had a strange life at times. So anyway, there was a cemetery in town. It was some of the headstones. They range from the early 1700s to 1935, and most of the town's names were buried in there. The founder of the town, his whole family was there, Jacob and Asa Cobbs, and it was overgrown. I mean, the only way I found was we were hunting rabbits one day, and I went to shoot at a rabbit, and there was a headstone. But my dad knew it was there, so we were sitting around a pond party one night, me and a bunch of buddies of mine, and this kid, Leslie, his name was. He said, when they buried people back them days, they buried them in wooden coffins with all their gold and everything. Like, yeah. He said, well, with the price of gold, man, we could dig up one of them graves and make a whole lot of money. Let's go do it. So, hear me out. We met there the next night, full moon, so we could see what we were doing. We met at the cemetery the next night and stuck the shovels in the ground. And I'm telling you, this ice came over that part of the cemetery. It was cold enough in there where it actually started forming fog on the other side of the stone wall. I looked at him, I said, we can't do this. There's 4 or 5 of us there. He's like, well, why, man? And I said, because you see what happened? So this place got ice cold to the point of fog is forming, man. We can't do this. We're going to die. We do. Oh, man, you're nuts. You're nuts. I left. And the 4 other guys left with us. He decided he was going to stay there by himself. And he was in a car accident 3 days later. And damn near killed him. He was in the hospital for like 4 months. And he didn't get anywhere either. He only dug down about 2 feet and got tired and left. But yeah, that was something you just don't mess with. So now my mother's house is built out of from a barn that was built in the 1800s. And the property, my grandmother's property was 1756. The house was erected. There was a lot of Indian activity there, and I had 2 uncles that died on the property and whatnot. And on my property, I swear to God, there is a grave. And that's people back in them days, they used to bury their loved ones on the property and in a little area and whatnot. So my property, the way it sits, it's kind of squared off stone wall, like a small field. Never thought anything of it. So one spring I'm back there and I noticed this depression in the ground. By the beginning of summer, it wasn't a sunken in depression, it was a mound. And on the very top of this square is a weird shaped rock. You can't move the rock, right? So I looked into it, and it turned out it might be one of my uncles that passed away in the early or the late 20s, late 20s. So there is a grave on my family property. Now the odd part was you could sit in my mother's house around 1:30 at night, and the heaviness that came over that house was enough to really get to you. So when my kids got older, they used to sit out in the yard partying, and around 1:30, everybody would put down their beers and leave. It was just like clockwork. So that was another oddity about the family property. And my son went hunting one time back in the swamp, and he came back and he was Snow White. Now, my son wasn't afraid of anything. He came back, he was Snow White. I said, then what the hell happened to you? And he's like, Dad. So I was sitting back there on the big log. Yeah. And he said, this 10-foot tall, hairy thing come walking out of the swamp, reached up in the grapevines, grabbed a handful of grapes, and kept right on walking. You're nuts. I go back, sure enough, right where exactly he told me, there was a big, you could see where something grabbed onto it and just ripped a bunch of the grapes off. There was some depressions in the ground, but I couldn't make out what they were. About 8 months after that, I was back behind my house turkey hunting. We were kind of deer lean for a few years, so I was back behind my house turkey hunting anyway. And I'm calling, and I seen this black thing on the road about 300 yards down. I was like, And he said, and I was like, well, I got turkeys coming in, right? So I looked down the road, and this thing looked out from the tree and looked at me. Well, I didn't quite get up fast, but it made one step, and it was across the road. You could hear it bashing through the woods. Now, we've been hearing them odd sounds in that swamp since I was a small kid. And to this day, when we left the house, especially in the wintertime and the springtime, something back there howling that you can't explain the noise. It's like a low, gruntle, high-pitched, and quite a few times it sounded like somebody was hammering in posters or hammering a fort together or something. I'd go over to see who it was because that's unusual for our family property, and there'd be nobody there. So a few years ago, I put a video out where I found these tracks behind my house, and I could lay my SP-101 with a 4-inch barrel inside the footprint of this track. And then I have another one. I think it's called An Odd Day or A Weird Find, I think the name of the video is, where this thing was built in the middle of the road. There was trees bent over 12, 15 feet in the air, not like another tree blew on top of it, but like something reached up, grabbed it, and just bent it over, tied it into a root system. And there was 4 or 5 inch trees, white pine trees, snapped off clean, not like somebody shot them or got hit with lightning. These are just snapped off clean. And I do have a video of that. I documented. So a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I got a hold of the Pennsylvania BRFO, which is Bigfoot Research Organization. And the gentleman came up, and we sat down and we talked about it. I showed him what I had on video and stuff, and they launched an investigation. They were pretty damn positive that we had some activity. And the other thing that behind my house, about a half a mile, there's a small pond which got some gigantic catfish in. And me and a buddy of mine, Chet, we were over there fishing it one night. And there's a little bridge that crosses the creek onto the other side of the property back there. And we heard something rustling, but it's lots of deer in there, so it didn't bother us. Bear, it wasn't bothering us. So we were sitting there listening, and all of a sudden it was like a cannonball hit the water in front of us. Something threw this gigantic rock. So now we're thinking there's somebody messing with us, right? So we get the lights out and we're looking. We can't see anything. So all of a sudden, Chet picks up a set of red eyes. And the way the land is, it goes like this. So this thing was about 8 foot, 9 foot off the deck. So he figured it was just a deer on a side hill. And then it sounded like somebody took 2 stones and started smacking them together as hard as fast as you could. For about 2-3 minutes, and one landed in the lake. And he said to me, I don't know what that is. He said, but that doesn't smell like a bear. It's like, yeah, you're right. I don't know what that smells like, but it's not good. So we ass-ended out of there. So that's part 2 of the oddities. I'm sure there's going to be a part 3 because, like I said, I've lived kind of a weird life. So we'll go to part 3 of the oddities, and then we'll continue on with the rest of the story. Hey, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. So this is Tom. Thank you for your time and your patience. Don't forget to share the videos out. I hope you're all enjoying these. I'm getting good feedback about it. So we'll catch all you guys on the next one.